Thank you so much for being with us here today. And I'm sure that the session name was a little bit catchy. This is why you made your way here. Today, we're going to dig deep into our session to see if sport has any superpower and if sports can really make change in our world. As the global community continues to seek innovative solutions to development challenges, sport emerged as a powerful tool for addressing critical issues in the Middle East and Northern African region. This panel is in collaboration with the International Platform on Sport and Development, will bring together leading experts and practitioners who have successfully used the power of sports to drive social change. This discussion will explore how sport-based programs have been utilized to addressing pressing challenges such as education disparities, youth unemployment, and gender inequality, while emphasizing on promoting peace, resilience, and social cohesion in conflict affected area. Before we dig deep into our panel discussion, I would like to ask Mr. Ahmed Rumaihi to join me on the panel for an opening remarks from Qatar Fund for Development, please.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, it's an honor to welcome you all today as we gather to explore the profound impact sport can have as a force for change. In a world often defined by its divisions, sport stands as a unifying power, one that transcends boundaries and brings people together in pursuit of shared goals and aspirations. This session reflects the shared vision of Qatar Fund for Development and the International Platform on Sport and Development to harness the power of sport as a tool for change and for addressing critical challenges in the MENA region and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, at the Qatar Fund for Development, we have always believed in the transformative potential of sport. It is not merely a game or a pastime. It is a tool capable of shaping lives, empowering communities, and fostering peace. We have seen how sport provides young people with hope and purpose, offers a platform for women to lead and inspire, and rebuilds trust in communities torn apart by conflict. The true power of sport lies not only in its simplicity, but in its extraordinary capacity to heal, to inspire, and to drive meaningful progress. For the state of Qatar, this belief in the power of sport is deeply ingrained in who we are. Our nation has invested not only in hosting world class sporting events, but also in ensuring sport is used as a vehicle for education, social development, and inclusion. These efforts reflect our unwavering commitment to fostering sustainable development and creating opportunities for all, no matter the challenges they face. Today's conversation is essential, not because sport provides easy solutions to complex challenges, but because it has constantly shown its ability to address pressing issues like inequality, youth unemployment, and social fragmentation. Sport has the unique power to turn obstacles into opportunities, breaking down barriers and paving the way for meaningful progress in ways few other tools can achieve. This discussion allows us to build on the momentum already created by countless impactful initiatives. By sharing experiences and innovative ideas, we can explore strategies to expand sport based programs and extend their reach to tackle global challenges more effectively. Our focus on the Middle East and North Africa region is especially significant, as this area faces unique hurdles, including high youth unemployment and the urgent need for stronger social cohesion. Together, we can harness the power of sport to overcome these challenges and foster sustainable development across the region. In closing, I would like to thank all of our panelists, our partners at the International Platform on Sport and Development, and everyone here today for a commitment to advancing this important agenda. At QFFD, we are proud to support efforts that not only address immediate challenges, but also contribute to long term sustainable development in the MENA region and beyond. Thank you.
In the sport development field, we take our work very seriously, but very dynamic at the same way. In this session, we will be showing case impactful projects, exchanging best practices, and explore strategies for scaling up sports based intervention to contribute toward achieving the sustainable development goals across the MENA region. With no further delay, please welcome with me our panelists for today. And I'll start like in order. Dr. Chapati from Head of African Union for Sport Council, please. Dr. Ben, Executive Director of the International Platform on Sport and Development. Mr. Nasser Khouri, Executive Director of Generation Amazing, Al Jil Mubhir. Ms. Fatima bin Faris, Program Director of Lead Morocco. I've been notified that all our mics are on, so just to keep you updated. Let me start with the hosting country, Qatar, and looking at the all amazing work that Generation Amazing has been doing. Mr. Nasser, we know that there's a lot of challenges going on in the region, whether it's social or economic. At the same time, we know that the big impact Generation Amazing has been doing. And I don't want to always just say that related to the World Cup, but we've seen that way before, and we're still seeing that for the current generation and the upcoming generation. How would you summarize the journey of Generation Amazing so far, and what challenges that you've overcome so far?
Thank you. I mean, first of all, I would like to thank Qatar Fund for Development for organizing this panel and inviting us to speak and share our experiences. I think with Generation Amazing, as you mentioned, we were born out of the FIFA World Cup, Qatar 2022, and the idea is that we wanted to leverage football as a way to kind of empower and kind of build resilience amongst youth and develop capacity across the region. So at that time, in 2011 and 12, we established our first program, which was looking at refugees in Jordan, and we built a safe space, which still exists today. And we've recently relaunched these, two safe spaces with Asian Football Foundation recently. And again, the impact doesn't stop; it keeps going. We have over 4,000 kids on a weekly basis using these two football pitches. So I think, going back to your question in terms of challenges, I mean, there's a lot of challenges, I think, but there's also a lot of opportunities. Because as Ahmed mentioned earlier, sports is has an amazing, power to unite and bring people together and promote, values of inclusion and sort of, create inclusive societies wherever you are, whatever the challenge is, it could be addressed on the pitch. And that's what we believe in, and that's what we kind of, that's what we've been doing over the last couple of years. So I think going back to your point, I think the biggest challenge is funding, especially as a foundation, as a NGO, and you have a lot of small community-based organizations that rely on grants and government funding sometimes. I know that there's a lot of federations like FIFA, UEFA, they give sort of community grants as well. These although they're small grants, but they go a very long way. So I think that's a big challenge, but there's a lot of now awareness around kind of the role of sports, that there's a lot of federations and sponsors and organizations that that want to use sports to give back to the community for social impact, which is amazing. But I think again, there's a lot of opportunities. As I said, there's a lot more that can be done and should be done. I think for us right now, post FIFA World Cup, we're looking at all sports. So obviously, we're looking at expanding to beyond football because again, all sports have an amazing power to influence and create change, positive change. And I think we're hosting the basketball, the FIBA World Cup in 2027 in Qatar. So now we're looking at kind of expanding into basketball. We're signing an MOU with the Qatar Basketball Association and hopefully with FIBA Foundation down the line as well to again use the mega sporting event to create legacy both for the MENA region and on a global scale.
Thank you so much. And I will focus much more on the over 1 million people that you reach us globally, but let's do this later. I want all of you to fly to Africa. So I was very impressed, Dr. Chapanti, to learn about the African Union's Agenda 2063 that outlines a vision for integrated and peaceful Africa. Can you share your thoughts on why the strategy is so critical for the continent's development and how it aligns with the role of sport in achieving these goals?
Thank you very much. And I would like to join Mr. Nasser in thanking the Qatar Fund for really organizing this very important panel. So, the Agenda 2063 is basically a strategic framework for the socio-economic transformation of the African continent. And through the Agenda 2063, the African Union heads of states and government kind of revived their enduring Pan-African vision of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena. So the agenda itself embodies 7 aspirations of African people framed in a collective ambition referred to as the Africa we want. And coming to sports, in line with the question, so the African Union really considers sports, physical education, and physical activity as a very important platform that can significantly contribute towards the achieving of the Agenda 2063 aspirations of the Africa we want. And for this reason, last year in 2023, in May 2023, African ministers responsible for sports endorsed the policy for sustainable development of sports in Africa that guides on the use of sports to contribute towards some of the aspirations of the Agenda 2063 aspirations of the Africa we want. And right now, we are encouraging all member states of the African Union to recognize and invest in the transformative power of sports, and this includes mainstreaming it in their national budgets and national strategic plans and activities. Thank you.
There seems so much to learn more about, but let's fly to other side of Africa, going to you, Ms. Fatima, Lead Morocco. Through your leadership of Lead Morocco and its initiative that focus on leadership and football academy, you've been combining education with the sports to empower youth. How do you see this model as a pathway for sustainable development in underdressed communities?
Thank you, Haneen, for the question. Hello, everyone. Echoing my fellow panelists as well, I would love to thank Qatar Fund for creating this platform for us and for people who believe in the power of sports to come together, discuss, and find pathways to continue on amplifying the impact of sports in the world. To answer your question, LEAD stands for Leadership, Education, Athletics, and Development. You mentioned the Football and Leadership Academy, which we have. It's been operating now since 2019. And like Mr. Ahmed said, sports is not a game. We also believe that it's a very powerful tool to develop tomorrow's leaders. So we use it as a hook to encourage young students to stay in school, to perform outstandingly in school. And then we also have a leadership development program, which teaches them important skills that we believe unlocks a young person's leadership potential. Why do we do this? We believe that sustainable development can only happen if we have competent and empathetic leaders in positions of power making decisions for the good of the community as a whole. So that's the whole philosophy. Besides the academy, we have another program that is specialized on girls empowerment. It's called She Plays Football. Why did we do this? Because yes, we need more sports for development in general, but we also need to tackle this issue in a very particular way because there's differences between the genders. Both genders don't need the same things in order to thrive. With this one, we try to create that place for girls to celebrate their talents. We don't want to only develop great players, which we already do, but we want to create women that are going to go on also to break gender barriers for other girls that are going to come up in the other in the next generations. I mean. And then we have a third program, which is employment and entrepreneurship through sports. Um, and for that one, we believe everybody knows that it's one of the main global challenges that a lot of organizations are working on, creating opportunities and value creation for youth. So what we do is we incubate young entrepreneurs who want to create sports-specific projects and help them start up their enterprise and thrive and carry on as well. Um, Qatar was my first visit to Qatar was in 2022 on the World Cup on an invitation from Mr. Nather. Thank you so much. We were an implementing partner for the festival that you did here in 2022. And now, through that connection that started here in Qatar, we are carrying on that legacy. Morocco is going to be a host country for the World Cup. We're hosting the Africa Cup, the next one. So we're doing an activation actually next week in Morocco to kind of pass on that knowledge from one organization or from one country to the other. And that's how I believe we can create sustainable development. Pass it on, right, Mr. Nasser? So that transfer of knowledge shouldn't die with one place and we start creating, but we build on it and carry on.
I'm always happy to talk with female leaders. Thank you so much, Fatima, for covering this. There must be a lot of work that you need to do. But I'm gonna fly back in time now and go back to 2003. Dr. Ben, take us back then and tell us why was it important to establish the international platform on sport and development at that time and over the year. Have you observed sports becoming a true force for sustainable development?
Yeah, thanks. And it's an honor to be here in Qatar, Doha, and really important we're having this conversation about sport. It's never been more critical, actually, to debate how sport can enable sustainable development and peace, given the range of intersecting crises facing the world and in this region. Sport and Dev, the international platform on sport and development, was born in 2003, actually at the birth, in a way, of the sport for development and peace sector itself. Sport has often been used as a tool for change, going back to the ancient Olympics, but it's really been in the 21st century, the last 20 years, that it's actually emerged on the international radar. There was a United Nations call for a database of actors, for someone to coordinate this loose coalition of actors that were starting to use sport for societal good. And that's how Sport and Dev was born. So we were kind of born in the beginning of this movement, and we've evolved with it over the years as it's grown, as it's evolved, as it's developed. And like the sector, we're actually moving now through adolescence and into adulthood. We are 21 years old, and this is time really for the sport for development sector to show that it can meaningfully contribute to change, to move beyond just evangelical notions of the power of sport, but to really show that sport in a targeted, balanced way can contribute to change in health, education, and other goals. So Sport and Dev serves as a one-stop shop, a platform, a community of practice, a knowledge sharing and capacity building hub with tools, resources, information for actors that use sport and development or want to use sport and development. And this is not just sporting actors. For too long, sport has been speaking to sport. Actors outside of sport are just as important. We work with the UN Refugee Agency, for example, and it is important that we work both within and beyond sport. Just quickly, have I observed sport as a tool for change? Have we observed it? Yes, there's been massive progress over the last 20 years. We've seen impact in various areas. Some are better known than others: health, gender equity, positive youth development, and increasingly responding to humanitarian crises, like the growing, escalating refugee crisis. There are over 100 million people displaced, more than ever, more than ever. There are more people displaced in the world than ever. The COVID-19 crisis and many more. Sport has actually pivoted to respond to a lot of these demands. Even during COVID-19, people said sport was on hold. Elite sport was on hold. Sport-based organizations in communities were distributing medical supplies and food. Sport for development organizations have a unique opportunity to contribute to this, but we still have a long way to go, and we need to be mindful of our limitations, and we need to be mindful of the challenges that we face. My countryman Nelson Mandela said, "The secret to climbing a great hill, I've discovered afterwards, is that there are many more hills left to climb." There are many more hills left to climb for us in sport for development. The sector is unequal across regions, across gender, across race, across many other variables. And that's exactly why we have partnered with the Qatar Fund for Development to strengthen sport for development in the Middle East and North Africa, because the sector is too north driven, it's too Anglo-centric, and there's not enough attention given to the great work that organizations like Generation Amazing, Lead Morocco, and others across Africa are doing. And this needs to better influence the global dialogue and decision making, because this approach has actually been born in the global south and has been led by organizations in this part of the world. And it's important for us to acknowledge that, to respect that, and to show this part of the world has a lot to teach the rest of the world in terms of using sport as a tool for positive development. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Going back to Mr. Nasser, and again, I'm still very amazed with the number. So, Generation Amazing has impacted over 1 million people globally using sport as a start, and now you're saying that there's a long journey to go still. Has the MENA region contributed in shaping this impact in any unique way? And there's always a saying that collaboration is a key. Can you emphasize more on that?
I think 100%, the MENA region contributed to a lot of, the best practice that, we are implementing today and globally as well. So there's a lot of learning experiences that we took from, communities that we work with in Jordan, Lebanon, the global south generally,
Palestine, a lot of
Palestine as
work in
well.
Palestine.
And I think that's something that we are, as Ben mentioned. I think there's a lot of sports for development agencies or organizations that really come to the global south with a prescribed program, and most of the time it's not culturally adaptable or sensitive, and it's not localized to the community. And so that's one of the things that we develop at Generation Amazing is whenever we're working on a sort of with a new community or sort of a country that we're operating in for the first time, we always try to understand the needs before kind of doing anything else, and that's how we design the interventions. Is everything is based on the needs of that community. So we understand the social issues, we understand the social fabric, and what we do is we work across the community. So it's not just with the kids or the schools or the coaches, it's with the parents, with the stakeholders, across the board. So I think that's also ensures that the programs are sustainable. We build capacity locally and we empower the local community to be able to take the lead. But I think, generally, going back to your point about, collaboration, I think this is something that, SDG 17 for us is part of our, kind of core strategy, because at the end of the day, we can't do it alone. We have to work with organizations, other partners on the ground. We work across multi, sector level. So obviously working with governments, working with UN agencies, working with other NGOs, also working with the football, sorry, not football, but, football and other sports federations, because they have a role to play as well, like the Olympic Committee and other sort of organizations. And I think you probably, Ben, would agree with that. But I think, there's a lot of work that now we're starting to kind of do with different partners across, the board. And there's a lot of kind of lessons learned and best practice that is within the MENA region, I think. And I think there's a lot that we can capitalize on.
I'm gonna go a little bit out of script, Mr. Nasser. While I was preparing for this panel, I've learned so much about you that there's a lot of hats of your head, like you're a Qatar national focal point. Like, please tell us more about what roles do you do other than Generation Amazing in a national level?
Yeah, so with UNOCT, which is the Office of Counterterrorism at the United Nations, there was a global sports program that was implemented as part of the, like, in the lead up to the World Cup. I became the national focal point. We've done amazing work with UNOCT over the last couple of years. There's actually a report that's been published a few months ago on kind of the work on the global sports program. I also sit on the as a UNESCO chair in the sports and governance. As part of a network of chairs globally. Hopefully, we'll be organizing a summit and a gathering for the chairs in February of next year here in Doha. And I'm part of the advisory committee for Football for the Goals, which is a UN initiative that looks at again, it's a network organization that looks at bringing together all the different relevant stakeholders that use football for social impact across the world. So there's over 50 organizations that are part of Football for the Goals. And again, going back to your point, I think this is something that, based on the last couple of years of us in the lead up to the World Cup, leveraging football for social impact and kind of organizing a lot of these festivals, as Fatma mentioned, summits where we bring people together to share experiences and knowledge. Publishing white papers. That's something that we've been doing over the last couple of years as well. It's really important to share knowledge and to look at sort of best practice where it exists and how that could be implemented without sort of trying to prescribe something on anyone. So I think, again, going back to that point, it's always important to kind of understand the needs, but also working in collaboration and kind of sharing knowledge, sharing kind of reports, etc. There's a lot that has been done on kind of best practice when it comes to the World Cup in Qatar, not just with the legacy programs. Generation Amazing is one of those legacy programs. There's been a lot of other areas where we've kind of implemented best practice when it comes to crowd management, for example. The stadiums, the transportation systems, and I think this is something that Qatar is doing now across the board. And I'm excited to be in Morocco, hopefully next week, and starting kind of that legacy between 22 and 2030.
So, as I can see that you're in a professional slash personal mission, all the best for that. Going back to you, Ms. Fatima, and considering the region youthful demographic and the fact that the sport is a powerful tool to address youth challenges, what more can be done to ensure a brighter future and build more sustainable communities?
That's a very interesting question, Haneen. I feel like I strongly believe that in the MENA region, our youth is our most precious resource. And we often tend to look at youth who doesn't have opportunities as being more of a challenge than a force. Whereas I think programs like Sports for Development can kind of help drive the power of that youth to create a better future for Africa and for the MENA region. To me, if there's anything that needs to be strengthened and worked on a little bit more, would be education, because I believe that's the key. We have to do an educational revolution, and I believe sports is one of the best tools to be used for that. Studies have proven now that our traditional methods of education don't really work for the challenges, the global challenges that our world is dealing with, such as climate change, wars, and political instabilities. We need different skills. The leaders of tomorrow need to learn other things that cannot be taught inside the classroom, but I believe can be taught on a football pitch or on a basketball court. The young boys and girls can learn resilience, can learn how to collaborate, how to do conflict resolution in a much, much smoother way if we're using sports as a tool. So I don't know if that answers your question, but to me is to look at education in a different way, take it outside of the classroom and use sports as a tool and use all of the budgets that go into the mega events to kind of try to gain something for our youth on the side as well.
I can assure you that everyone on the panel agree with you, and I hope that we bring something new for our audience today. Going back to you, Dr. Chapandi, um, with your extensive experience as a former lecturer and an author on the political and social history of sport, how do you see the relationship between sports policy and socializing transformation in Africa? And what lessons could the MENA region learn out of that? Again, we want to take, like, collaboration is the key, as we mentioned.
Thank you. Thank you for that very important question. And building on lead Morocco's sharing on the great works that is going on there. Um, sports for development, in this case, particularly driven by civil society organizations, NGOs, grassroots organizations, with support from international agencies, have done tremendous work in terms of contributing towards the betterment of societies on the African continent. A lot of work has gone into that, and uh, building on that, there is need, of course, to complement the great works that are being done by civil society organizations by ensuring that there is mainstreaming of sports for development in regional and national policies to ensure that governments complement the great works that civil society organizations are doing in the field of sports for development. And for governments to support any program, then it needs to be part of the main policies and agendas. And that is where it is critical in terms of bridging the gaps between the works that civil society organizations are doing and what governments are doing in terms of ensuring that there is mainstreaming of the initiatives to ensure ownership and continued support and funding, particularly for civil society organizations.
I also have an out of the script question. Have you yourself been an athlete or you've played any kind of sports?
Well,
There's always something special about athletes, I have to say.
well, I've played a bit of sports, yes, although not at a very competitive level.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, I
sure.
feel this mindset that it goes with the athlete. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Dr. Ben, I've heard that there's a significant milestone that has been done on the international platform on sport for development, and it has something with Arabic. And we're in the Middle East today. Can you share more about the MOOC? We've focused a lot about education. So, what is the MOOC and why was it? What's happening?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. A MOOC is a massive open online course. To translate it, it's an open, freely available course. Lots of universities have launched them to democratize access to knowledge, which still in this day and age is quite restricted, often behind academic journals and or tertiary institutions. So we launched the first MOOC on sport for development. That was the international platform on sport and development with the Commonwealth and the Australian government in 2020. Why did we do this? Because there's a lot of interest in sport for development. There's increased investment in sport for development. There's increased practitioner-based led programs in sport for development, but there's still a big gap between policy and practice. There are big overarching commitments to the SDGs, and frameworks like the African Union Agenda. But how do grassroots organizations actually align a sport-based program to the SDGs? How do they measure their work? A critical gap. How do they deliver programs with fidelity and quality? How do we move beyond evangelical notions of sport to actually evidence-based approaches? So that's why we developed the MOOC, to help people design effective policies and programs, to deliver them, and particularly to monitor and evaluate them, because there is still a bit of a gap between evidence and practice when it comes to the use of sport for development. And that gap is narrowing, but there is more work to do there. Since we launched the MOOC, it became very clear to us that launching a course in English was only part of the solution. Again, while English is a global medium of communication, how can we expect people in other parts of the world to use resources if we're not speaking to them in their own language? Nelson Mandela, again, I'll quote him, and again, he was someone who said, none of us will be free until Palestine is free, and I'll just say that as well. He said, if you speak to a man in a language he understands, you speak to his head. If you speak to a man in his own language, you speak to his heart. We've decided to take an approach to promote language justice, and that's why we've launched the MOOC in Spanish, French, and Arabic, which are now in 4 of the 6 UN languages, with the potential for Russian and Chinese in the future. And so we've launched these courses in these languages, but we've actually also customized them. So Hanin has worked with a number of stakeholders, including some in the room, to make sure that we produce a course that reflects the needs of stakeholders in the Middle East and North Africa. But viewpoints from these actors come and shape global consensus and decision making. We've also launched our website, sportanddev.org, in Arabic as well as in French and in Spanish. And we are actually now translating content from Arabic into English because it's time to reset the dynamics of power that we only receive information in certain languages from certain regions, from certain people. We speak too long about equity and leaving no one behind, and we do too little about it. So that's why we launched the course. And that's why we're committed to making it grow in the Middle East and North Africa. And there's a lot more that we need to do. But the partnership with the Qatar Fund for Development has allowed us to provide this resource free of access, completely free of access for anybody. And I'm quite proud to say we've now had about 8,700 people from 198 countries take the course. And that figure is growing day by day.
And by speaking about action and Qatar Fund for Development, maybe they can share on screen. I've heard that there's something interesting about the call for articles, so maybe you can emphasize more on that.
Yes, so we've also launched a public call for articles on sport for development and peace in the Middle East and North Africa. This is an open call. Anyone can submit articles, news articles, research pieces relevant to sport for development in the Middle East and North Africa. You can submit them in English, French, or Arabic. And again, this is a way of trying to build body of knowledge on an open access platform that informs the rest of the world, but also provides a blueprint for how we move forward. So we invite you to submit, but also to spread the word. Everything we do on our platform is open access on a Creative Commons license, because we believe that we need to remove barriers to knowledge production and consumption, and that's the call right there. Thank you.
Nasser, we've got a few minutes and I will open any question and answer for 3 minutes if there is any, but you've also have your own education platform. It's a very unique one. So it's just not the field, like you're also of the field. Can you tell us more about this education platform?
Yeah, so again, going back to, early on, we realized that there's not enough curriculum, especially in Arabic. This is, 2012, 13, 14, and we decided to kind of develop curriculum. We've kind of worked a lot with experts, both academic and other, NGOs that had curriculum out there. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So, we've kind of designed, different modules. One that's focused on, gender equality, for example. There's another one that's, dedicated to the needs assessment. So this is basically for coaches working in communities that, can kind of go through the module, but then can do a needs analysis to understand the social issues of that community and design interventions. And so, in the lead up to the World Cup, we realized that, we wanted to kind of, expand the curricula to anyone with an internet connection, really. And we wanted to kind of create an open education resource, and that's what we did. So now we have a hub. You can find it on our website, generationamazing.qa. But the idea is that we continue to develop modules and resources that sit on the platform. And the idea is that we realize that there is no central football for development hub online that has resources that are linking safeguarding policies to modules around again specific needs around social issues. So we've developed kind of that platform that is the open education resource now with it has 8 modules, the latest being kind of a new module that we developed as a legacy to the World Cup. Also, we had a tripartite agreement between FIFA, WHO, and the state of Qatar. So, under that agreement, we developed a psychosocial, module on psychosocial support through football. But also, it could be used for all sports, really. And I think this is another amazing thing about sports is that again the pitch itself could be it's an amazing platform to address mental issues and mental health and psychosocial support, especially post conflict, um, and in conflict kind of communities that are going through trauma or have been through trauma. So we've done a lot of work here with the Afghan evacuees, working in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs over the last couple of years, but also now with the Palestinian evacuees from Gaza. We're doing a lot of work with them We've developed kind of and trained 30 coaches from the community itself. So these are Palestinian evacuees from Gaza that are now leading programs for the younger kids within the residential facility that they're staying in Doha. So again, this is just, again, it's the idea is that we continue to collaborate, we continue to work with other organizations like, Sports and Dev to continue expanding and to create resources that are relevant to address social issues.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the effort you've been putting so far, and way to go. Just wondering if there's any question from the audience. They told me that they will bring you a mic. Yes, we have one on the first row, and yeah.
Thank you so much for your inspirational comments, and some of the work that you're doing is so incredible. I was someone who loved football personally growing up, and just loved the engagement that came with, the World Cup in Qatar, that exposed a lot of fans in the global north, global south to, a football crazy region. It exposed the fact that Morocco is a football crazy country, and also presented, it kind of dispelled a lot of notions of, kind of preconceived notions that maybe we were not. And anyway, how do you see sports diplomacy developing and evolving in the future? And what are your aspirations of sports diplomacy? That's my question.
This is for Mr. Nasser, right?
For both, actually. I would love engagement from Nasser and yourself.
Past and the present. Pass it on.
So I think, again, the World Cup in Qatar was a great example, as you mentioned. I think this is one of the reasons why, the leadership in this country wanted to host a mega sporting event like the FIFA World Cup, is to showcase a different sort of, um, idea of like the Middle East, the GCC, and again, I think there's so much diversity within the region that, between Qatar and Saudi and Morocco and all the countries, you can see so much diversity, and that's what a lot of people don't know. So there's a lot of kind of stereotyping and, kind of that you see kind of until today, even post World Cup, we still kind of, unfortunately see a lot of that. But I think, what we've proved is that, we were able to deliver the best World Cup in the history of FIFA and the history of football. And again, I don't think there's going to be, it was a very unique setup in terms of, hosting in one city. There's a lot of challenges now with the next World Cup being in Canada, US, Mexico. Again, I think in terms of best practice, this is something I mentioned earlier. I mean, we've implemented a lot of, kind of strategies around, challenges that we face in terms of, again, the cooling technologies in the stadiums, the security, the fan engagement, crowd management. There's been a lot of things that now we're sharing with other host cities and committees like US, Canada, Mexico, like Morocco, Spain, Portugal. And I think, going back to the point is, Qatar is a very small country, but, had a very big sort of ambition and wanted to prove something. And we did that with the mega sporting event. And I think going back to your point about sports diplomacy, again, I think a lot of people interpret sports diplomacy in different ways, but I think the way we see it is that it's the legacy that continues after the event. And, how is the event sort of, contributing towards the society and also on a global scale. So if you look at the World Cup in Qatar, we looked at, Generation Amazing. It's impacted, over a million lives across 40 countries. Not all, countries or organizing committees create legacy programs like we've done here. So I think this is another amazing example of, best practice. And I hope that other countries and other committees also follow, sort of our, um, kind of strategy, but also look at, again, like meaningful legacy that lives beyond the 30-day tournament.
Yeah. I mean, to follow up on everything that you said, Nasser, which I also agree with, definitely I believe in the power of sports diplomacy. For Morocco, it's a very special case because it started with our new model for development that sport is a huge part of. This model for development was initiated by His Majesty the King Mohammed VI back in 2008. So this vision for sports and on all of the changes that we've seen that are starting to pay off results that we see in Morocco have it was years of work behind that, and we were proud to be sort of catalysts of that movement and kind of help shape it when we came into it. The Qatar World Cup, like you said, it sets the bar very high, especially for the legacy, and it's created a new brand for Qatar, I believe. We're also, I think, hoping to become recognized for that as well, and use sports as a tool to drive economic development, and also reshape the diplomatic scene. Like you said, from Morocco in 2030, it's going to be Morocco, Spain, and Portugal. So it's a very unique setup that we're hoping will also shift how we perceive that region and the connection between Africa, the Arab world, and Europe as well, thanks to sports.
Thank you, Fatima. Thank you, Nasser. And thank you for the question. I've seen a timer that nervous me. I don't know if we have time for another question or we can do it in a personal of like, okay, you had a question, right? Yeah, let's take this and then apologize, but we will need to take it on informal way. And the first row, please.
Thank you to the panel for your insightful remarks. Actually, second the question on sports diplomacy is what I'm highly interested in as well. But my other question then would be about economic opportunities. There was some discussion at the start about helping underserved communities with employment and using sports as a vehicle to fight unemployment amongst the youth. And I was wondering if the panel could expand more on that. It's kind of an open question, so whoever feels free to take it.
Yeah, it's a great question. So you know, there's this notion often that sport engages young people, and brings young people into productive pursuits, and for a long time, people have said, well, where's the evidence around this? But actually, there now is increasing evidence linked to the SDGs. SDG 8.6, young people not in education, employment, and training, which is a key metric in many parts of the world, that sport has a high proportion of representation in this metric. So, in other words, there's a higher percentage of young people in education, employment, and training through sport than there is for the general population. So there's actually now some tangible evidence that sport is helping young people make their first steps into employment, education, and training in various contexts, and that it can be a good bridge for young people to get involved in these things for the first time, especially for first work experiences for people, which includes actually often being involved with sport for development initiatives. There's still a long way to go, I think, on this front, but the evidence is really promising. We need more evidence on this in other regions. A lot of this evidence is coming from Europe, but this is actually increasingly important in other countries because in sub-Saharan Africa, and Dr. Chipanda will tell you this, there's a completely different demographic dividend. 60% of the population are young people, and we're seeing this huge bulge. So there is evidence around it that sport can actually also play an economic role in stimulating employment, education, and training. And this is a critical issue in South Africa, my country. We have 60% youth unemployment. We've got one of the highest youth unemployment ratios in the world. So sport's not going to solve all the structural causes, but it is a way that it can contribute to getting people productively involved. And I'll stop there. I don't know if maybe Dr. Chipanda or someone would like to
if you
add.
can also.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. And just building on what Dr. Sanders pointed out, indeed, sports, we are not romanticizing the capabilities of sports, but there is empirical evidence on the ground, of course, showing that sports can significantly contribute towards, social economic development, including employment. And key for us, of course, in the African region is collecting the actual data to provide the evidence. So we are in the African Union Sports Council, for example, we are in the process of finalizing a digital monitoring and evaluation framework to ensure that we have concrete data that will help us, aggregate the results and assess the contributions of significant contribution of a concrete contribution of sports towards socio-economic development. And indeed, as Dr. Sanders pointed out, yeah, really, there is a lot of empirical evidence pointing towards that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chapandi, and thank you everyone for the fruitful conversation. It was my absolute pleasure to share the panel with you. Thank you for each and every one of you. I hope it was a fruitful conversation for you as well, and enjoy the rest of your day.